How are you doing?
Hi, Tobias. I'm doing well. How are you?
Very good, and I'm super excited today. We've got some wonderful Australian YA authors on board to come and have a chat with us. And hello to everyone who is watching from home. We're really excited today to share a little bit about the stories that matter to us. And we've got some really great guests to speak to. And we're also going to be joined by an incredible artist and graphic novelist, Mirranda Burton, who is going to be actually illustrating live while we're having these conversations with our author friends. And so you'll see a little time-lapse illustration pop up somewhere on the screen. So make sure you keep your eyes peeled for them, because I'm sure they're going to be super cool and a really fun interpretation of some of the stories that we're talking about with our YA author friends.
How's lockdown treating you, Tobias?
Lots of TV and lots of reading and all of that sort of stuff. Making the most of all of the spare time. How about you?
Yeah, I'm the same. I've been reading a lot. I've been reading your book, which is very exciting. Congratulations! It came out just recently. You're doing anything but fine. Can you tell us a little bit about it and why this story was important to you?
Sure. So, this is my debut YA novel. It's called Anything But Fine. It's about a very gifted 16-year-old ballet dancer, Luca Mason, who falls down a flight of stairs at his ballet studio and shatters all the bones in his left foot and has to give up dancing. So obviously that's, this huge thing for him and he has to start from scratch. It's a pretty personal story for me and set in the town where I grew up in Ballarat. And it's kind of one of those books that I really wish was around for me to read when I was a teenager. And I'm really excited for everyone else to read it now. But you just had another book come out as well.
I did. I had my novella, The Deep End, which is part of the Australia Reads campaign. And I was so excited to take part. It's about a girl who epically fails at her swimming carnival and humiliates herself in front of the whole school. And this really cute boy who's like the best swimmer in her year offers to give her swimming lessons, and they get to know each other in the pool and bond over unexpected things. And I think this story really mattered to me because I was actually writing it when I was going through a pretty hard time and experiencing a lot of anxiety, and I think some of that went into some of the story as well unexpectedly, but it really helped me to process all of that. And I think that's the really beautiful thing about stories, and whether you're writing them or reading them, they can really not just help you deal with things, but just also escape from the world.
Absolutely, and that's what we're going to be talking to all of our author friends about today. Okay,
so our first guest I'm so excited about is my personal friend and also my agent, Danielle Binks. She's the author of incredible middle grade book, The Year the Maps Changed, and also the wonderful YA book, The Monster of Her Age, which just came out. Congratulations, Danielle, and hello.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, and hi, everybody.
We're talking about why stories matter. So why did The Monster of Her Age matter to you?
Oh gosh, you know what? I wrote it during lockdown, which was very hard. It was like having perpetual homework every day of lockdown. And in the end, I decided that I really wanted to finish it because it was this weird time capsule of a very strange time in my life where there was a lot of grief, but also quite a lot of happiness that I wanted to inject in there as well. And it all went into the mix of that book. So it is a very weird, odd, beautiful time capsule of what we all went through in 2020, what I went through in 2020. And it speaks to larger themes as well. But I'm really proud that I got it finished despite all the hardships.
What's the elevator pitch of the book?
The elevator pitch of the book is, imagine if you went to high school with somebody that played an iconic monster in a horror film that you grew up watching and were terrified by. My book is told from that actor's perspective.
If a book title could sum up your life, what would this title of your life be?
Okay, is this where I can hold up a copy of a book? Because I don't know if people are going to believe that this is the title of a book,
Hold it up, I want to see it.
Jenna, you're going to laugh at this. It's totally Please Don't Hug Me by Kate Kerr. I come from a European family where it's hugs and 2 kisses each cheek. And I can't say that I ever loved that. So I think for me, it's Please Don't Hug Me. Just a friendly wave. We'll do it.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
And perfect for the pandemic as well. Social distancing.
I'm such a hugger. I'm the complete opposite. So I'm glad I know that now. I will not come in for the big hug when I see you next.
Oh, good. I like this. Let's be open about what our boundaries are. I think that's really
exactly.
Good.
It's totally fine.
Okay, so imagine if we weren't in lockdown right now, where would you want to travel to?
If there was no limit to what I could do, I think I would fly first class to New York City and then throw money at the idea. I would see what it would take to bring back the original cast of Hamilton for a one night only performance.
Yes.
Genuinely, if you don't know what Hamilton is, this just looks like I really love ham. But genuinely,
I feel like at the moment we could make that happen. Everyone's dying to be performing over there. So I feel like a one night only reunion, charity performance, I feel like we could get that over the line.
Well, thank you so much for talking to us today, Danielle. It was so great to see you.
thank you both. Thank you, everybody. And yay, Australia reads. Woohoo!
Our next guest actually is another one of Danielle's authors as a literary agent from Chicago, Sara Haghdoosti. Hi, how you doing?
Hello.
Hi,
Thanks for
Sara.
having me.
Lovely to see you.
Oh, so good seeing you both.
You grew up in Sydney and your debut novel, Sunburnt Veils, is set in Sydney, isn't it? Do you want to tell us a little bit about your book?
Sure. So Sunburnt Veils is set in Sydney. It's set at Sydney University, which has a very dear and special place in my heart. I have also been talking to a few of my friends about it. So I know a lot of expats right now who can't come home for a bunch of reasons. And we've been texting about how much we miss Australian coffee. And my mom just sent me a care package of Tim Tams and caramel koalas. So
Thanks, Mum. So we're here today talking about stories that matter to us. And I wanted to ask, when you were growing up, was there a particular character that you admired or connected with?
Josie from Looking for Ella Brandy. And I think
Same.
part of the reason why
Yeah, me too.
for
Josie
me,
all
it
along.
was like, that's brilliant.
Such a brilliant book.
Oh,
So good.
Josie was like my best friend in high school. Like I reread that book constantly and was just like, okay, this was even when my own friends were being really crappy. I was like, Josie is my backup, my girl. Like, you know, she was there for me.
It felt so real in a way that I was just like, oh, this is my life. And like it talked about racism and it talked about mental health. And like I think back then it just felt like one of the very few books that was doing that in that way. So like Josie was definitely a big part of my high school. Yeah, definitely like you, Jenna, friend crush.
I feel like I honestly feel like Josie Ella Brandy is responsible for like this whole generation of YA authors, pretty much, especially the women. I think I think we were raised by Josie in a way, and she has influenced, and Melina Marchetta has influenced all of us in some way.
Thank you so much for talking with us today, Sara. It's been so lovely to connect with you across the ocean over there in America, and I'm sure everyone's really enjoyed hearing from you, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Our next guest I'm really keen to talk to is Kostakis, who is the author of so many books, including The First Third, Monuments, and The Sidekicks. Hello, Will.
Hi Jenna, hi Tobias, how are you?
Good,
Hi.
How are you doing?
Yeah, chugging along, just, enjoying the many sights and sounds of my living room.
Look, we're talking about why stories matter today, and I want to know which of your books matters the most to you and why does it matter?
They all have, I'm attached to all of them for sentimental reasons, but the one that I keep coming back to is sort of The Sidekicks, which, I wrote it in a time in my life where I was sort of coming out to my friends and family, and, I built up the strength writing Ryan's coming out story in that book. I built up the strength to come out, in my early 20s to the people around me, and then I came out professionally when I released that book, and it just shows that stories can be powerful, not only for the readers who read them, but also for the writers, who shape them. And so that's why I'm such a big believer in not only getting teenagers reading, but getting them writing as well, because, it has shaped so much of who I am.
What was the book that got you hooked on reading?
Well, I was a big reader all the way through from childhood into up to year 7, and then I was like, stuff it, I've read enough books now, I'll just read the 4 I have to read for school every year. And that is not great. My vocabulary is terrible now, so don't do that. But I remember in year 11, I picked up a book in my school library called The Whole Business with Kiffo and the Pitbull, and I wasn't really aware of what Australian YA was at that point. And I remember reading it cover to cover in the space of 2 days, mostly during maths. And it was about these two teenagers in Darwin who spoke like how I spoke. They hung out at the local IGA, and they thought that their English teacher was a drug dealer and that she killed one of their brothers. And the whole book is about them trying to catch her and frame her. And it was just this bolt of lightning. And I saw myself reflected. I saw Australia reflected. And I was like, oh, wait, there are really good books written for Australian teenagers. And so it was from then onwards that I have been just a voracious reader. And I fell back in love with reading because of that book.
I'm sold. I want to read it now.
Yeah, it sounds amazing.
Yeah, it really is.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Will. It was so great to chat to you today, and enjoy your living room.
Look, it was my absolute pleasure.
Our next guest is the author of 16 books. And I don't know about you, Jenna, but having written one book myself, I can't imagine ever having written 16. And of course, I'm talking about the one and only Lili Wilkinson. Hi.
Hi,
Lili.
it's so nice to see other people's faces.
Welcome. Your latest book, The Erasure Initiative, just won the Aurealis Award for Best Young Adult Novel. Congrats. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the book?
Sure. So the book is The Erasure Initiative, and it is a YA thriller about a girl called Cecily who wakes up on a self-driving bus that's going around and around a deserted tropical island. And there are 7 people on the bus in total, and nobody has any memory of who they are or how they got there.
Ooh,
That sounds incredible.
love it.
Is there a character that you really admired or connected with in the book when you were younger?
Yeah, like so many. I really loved Tamara Pierce's Alana series, which was about a girl who had to pretend to be a boy in order to go to school because she wanted to be a knight. And I really loved Anne of Green Gables as well. I wanted to live that sort of dreamy, magical life, just full of imagination. And I always got really angry that Anne of Green Gables ended up in the future books just sort of being like a boring stay-at-home mum, and she gave up her dreams of being an author.
That always angered me about where Anne ends up as well, because I loved Anne and she was so ambitious, and Gilbert was always so supportive of her ambition as well, so it felt really strange to me that she just totally stepped back from that and was like the doctor's wife and he had his career.
Yeah, me too.
Do you think we might ever get like a bit of a remix on the end of that story from anyone? Like kind of like in Six the Musical, where we see what could have happened to all of Henry VIII's 6 wives if they had have gone on to live these big fulfilling lives. Do you think we need that for Anne of Green Gables?
Yeah, maybe like an alternate one. Although like the stories that go on, and like there are several books that tell stories about her kids, and they're really lovely too. But yeah, I think definitely a remix. I really liked the TV show, which I know was very controversial and some people didn't, but I really liked it because I felt like it did sort of inject a little bit of a modern sensibility into the show without sacrificing the kind of beautiful core of it.
I did not
I know you did it.
I'd be very vocal about not liking the show, but that's fine. I can still read the books. It doesn't ruin them for me.
Well, thank you so much for chatting with us today, and I hope everything's going well for you with all of your writing at home.
Thanks, you too. I hope you guys are well and staying safe and, can find things to stop you from going crazy in these times.
Yeah. Oh, that was such a fun chat. I've actually never read Anne of Green Gables, so I might need to dip into that while we're in lockdown.
You definitely do, and I love that Lili's writing a fantasy, and we actually have another fan of someone who's already written fantasy to talk to now, Jeremy Lachlan, who has written the epic adventure stories Jane Doe and the Cradle of All Worlds and its sequel Jane Doe and the Key of All Souls. Welcome, Jeremy. Hi.
Thanks so much for having me. Hi to you both. It's so great to see you.
We're talking about stories that matter today, so I want to know, with your books, why did Jane Doe's story matter to you?
I've always been obsessed with stories and storytelling, and this one I just wanted to make it a love letter to adventure. It's about a girl, Jane Doe, who has to journey into this infinite labyrinth between worlds to rescue her father who's disappeared inside, and that also mattered to me because my dad died as I was starting to write this book, so I wanted to kind of put a lot of that relationship in there as well, to make it this fun escape, because that's what action adventure fantasy novels are perfect for, to make it an escape but also a very heartfelt story as well.
You mentioned that you've always loved adventure stories, so what was a book that got you hooked on reading?
In primary school, it was the R.L. Stine thrillers, not necessarily Goosebumps, but the slightly older ones, like The Babysitter 1, 2, and 3, The Boyfriend. Did you guys read those ones?
I only read Goosebumps, and I was the biggest Goosebumps aficionado that there's ever been.
But I saw they made, the Fear Street movies just came out recently, which were based on R.L. Stine books as well. Did you read
I
the Fear
haven't
Street?
watched them yet.
I didn't read Fear Street, but I remember the skeletons on the covers. But actually, the one story that really got me hooked was The Lost World by Michael Crichton. It's the sequel to Jurassic Park. My brother bought me the hardcover for Christmas when I was in year 8. And it was the first kind of the first big book that I actually read. And it sent me down this big Michael Crichton rabbit hole, which also led me to Stephen King and Matthew Riley and just all of these big action-adventure kind of blockbuster books that ignited that passion for that kind of fast-paced storytelling within me. And now the fact that I get to do it for a living just blows my mind. I love it.
If you could travel anywhere, if lockdowns and the world wasn't going through what we're going through, let's just live in a fantasy for a second. If you could travel anywhere, where would you be traveling right now?
Just before COVID hit, I was planning a research trip or wanted to go back to Borneo or somewhere in South America just to be in that environment. I'm talking deep, dark, everything wants to kill you jungle kind of thing, because it's tough, and I know that we've all felt it, that desire to get out. I mean, how do you stay creatively charged and inspired about the world when your world is suddenly shrunk down to your bedroom? I mean, it's really tough. How are you both coping with all of that side of it?
Fine. I don't know, just trying to stay busy.
I think for me, it goes back to, we've been talking about it a lot today, but it goes back to stories, right? And other people's stories and filling my cup with them. I think the escapism is so important. And and sometimes writing can do that as well. But I often find, I don't have to use my brain as much when I'm reading or watching other people's stories as well.
Like gaming has really helped me. Nintendo and PlayStation, just diving into these worlds, because they're stories as well. I'm playing one of the
Totally.
And it's I'm hunting monsters in a post-apocalyptic world, and it feels glorious. Like I'm kind of living vicariously.
Well, and you're so in those stories as well, because you take control of the character as well. It's like you're fully immersed in that world and that story. I think people often don't think about gaming as storytelling, but I mean, I grew up playing computer games, and they're some of the best fantasy stories that I've ever consumed, but just you're in control of it as well, which is so cool.
I think the bottom line is we're talking about stories that matter, obviously, and it doesn't really matter what form it takes. It's just the story that you can get lost in that is important. So it was so great to talk to you, Jeremy. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me. Can't wait to see you both in person again sometime soon.
It was so great to talk to Jeremy and everyone today. I think what all the conversations have really reinforced to me is just how important stories are, and especially at a time like now when we need the escape, and whatever form that is, whether it's writing them, reading them, or playing the game, watching the show, I think as long as you're able to connect with the story, that's what's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, it's been so nice to hear people talk about so many Australian stories that matter to them in particular, and really helping to sort of, see yourself on the page at a time like this, I think is really great. And like you said, whether you're reading or even writing, I think, we would definitely encourage everyone who's watching to write their own stories, because it can be a really powerful form of escapism as well. All
these authors are all on social media and everything. You can look any of us up, and I'm sure anyone would, if you ever want to ask questions about reading or writing or anything like that, we'd all be happy to answer them. I know it's unfortunate we're not in person today and can't answer any questions, but we can online. Connect with us in that way. It's really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, we all talk about the books that we're reading and the shows that we're watching and stuff on our social media. So if you need any recommendations, swing on by our pages, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of things for you to find.
Yeah, I'm constantly fangirling on Twitter. So, but thank you, Tobias. It was so great to see you today. Hopefully we can see each other in person soon.
Yeah, so nice to hang out all morning. So I hope everyone's enjoyed this, and hopefully we'll see you all in real life very soon.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.